and welcome to the Crate and Crowbar. This is episode 114, and it's the 13th of October. I'm Tom Francis. With me here today are...
Chris Thurston.
And...
Graham Smith.
And...
Marsh Davis.
Your ands then suggested there wasn't going to be a fourth person.
What's the news?
The first piece of news was Deus Ex
Jin? Yes.
Good start.
Where
What's that, Graham?
Square Enix have announced that they are officially releasing, or have officially approved, the release of a Deus Ex remake mod called Deus Ex Revision, which has been in development for years now, but has literally just come out as of about an hour ago, and it's all Square Enix approved, and they sent out press releases about it and stuff. And what it does is it increases the visual fidelity of the original Deus Ex with new fancy textures and stuff like that, but I think it also goes further. I think it's somewhere between simply an HD texture mod and something more like Black Mesa's Source, in terms of it rebuilds certain levels from scratchy. They were itchy. Now they're scratchy. From itchy. So that they're not just, very simple grey block rooms as certain parts of the original Deus Ex was, and that kind of thing. Which
Is this
sounds
just
cool?
Are they sort of like releasing the game with this built in, or is it they're just saying it's okay that this mod exists?
It's downloadable through Steam. I don't know if it's being sold as a separate entity from the original Deus Ex, or whether you get it free if you already own Deus Ex on Steam, or what.
Yeah, I would assume that.
But it has like a Steam page and stuff like that, certainly.
All right.
Which is distinct from the original game.
I was kind of hoping it would be the Shifter mod. Did anyone ever play that?
No.
It was just a bunch of little tweaks. Didn't really have any major sort of like concept behind it. It was just, let's fix a bunch of stuff in Deus Ex that were mildly annoying. So things like you could upgrade your org canisters. If you found one you didn't want to use, you could use it to upgrade one you already had, which is how it works in the subsequent Deus Exes, and it's just a better system. Like, much as we lionized Deus Ex 1, its upgrade system was basically a bit shit. And loads of the orgs are more useful. You get points for doing things stealthily, whereas previously you only got experience points for killing people, which is kind of ridiculous given the game's philosophy. And for completing objectives, but this gives you, specific points for doing things in cool ways. And it let you throw any melee weapons, so you could throw knives, and you could do stuff like throw a knife to block. They also, knives would stick in walls, and you could throw a knife to block a laser grid by throwing it in the wall next to the laser grid and then sneaking past.
I should stress, I'm not particularly well informed about Deus Ex Revision, so it's possible it has many similar changes to that. I think I did read somewhere that they'd added extra dialogue and stuff like that, which suggests that they're not afraid anyway of expanding the content rather than just maybe polishing it. But yeah, I don't know exactly how far it's gone.
And this has been endorsed by Square Enix then?
Yeah. So
it seems odd that they would do that, because I assumed what they were going to do with the new rebooted franchise was eventually to remake Deus Ex.
Maybe they still will. I mean, this doesn't really stop them from doing that.
No,
if anything, it maybe allows them to make a bigger deal out of a future reboot announcement or something, because more people will have been exposed to it because they will have played it, rather than just having pretended to have played it.
They take so long with each of the iterations of the game as well that I imagine, at the very least, that's another 4 or 5 years away from doing it.
Sure.
That'd be really interesting, because it would be people playing. There'd be so many people who haven't played Deus Ex who are kind of aware of it, and I wonder what it'd be like to kind of play for the first time a game that you actually missed at the time.
Theoretically, this has been released to coincide with the 15th anniversary of Deus Ex, because they've been doing a bunch of other stuff around that. They also put out a 4-minute long animated trailer short film thing, which included scenes from all previous Deus Ex games, mostly Human Revolution and Mankind Divided, but it had animated scenes from Deus Ex 2 in there and stuff like that, which is quite neat to see. What was the other news, Chris?
The other news also relates to animated cutscenes from things. So over the weekend, there was CitizenCon, which is the convention for Star Citizen. And as part of that, they announced the cast list for Squadron 42, which is the standalone single-player game that will sit alongside Star Citizen, the MMO. And that cast includes a lot. Well, it's one of those moments where you realise where some of that $100 million worth of funding has gone, because the cast list includes Gary Oldman, Gillian Anderson, Mark Hamill, John Rhys-Davies, Mark Strong, a whole bunch of other actors. John Rhys-Davies and Mark Hamill were both in Wing Commander and its sequels quite extensively. They're both personal friends of Chris Roberts, which I found out. And so there's it kind of confirms that Squadron 42 is really the Wing Commander spiritual sequel. This wasn't news to me, because I can now talk about the fact I went to see it filmed about 3 months ago and have been NDA'd up to my eyeballs ever since. To the extent that I still can't talk about absolutely everything, but I did hang out on in Andy Serkis's motion capture studio with Mark Hamill and John Rhys-Davies for 2 days, watching them wearing helmets covered in cameras, running around waving cardboard guns and pretending to get into lifts forever.
Did it rob you of all respect for them?
No, actually, weirdly, it increased my respect for them. And I mean, that was already sizable given the nature of my enthusiasm for Star Wars. What was sort of interesting about it is watching people who are obviously very, very good actors contend with acting for a player that they don't know exactly where the player will be. It's so unlike Wing Commander, where the cutscenes are like these, choose your own adventure FMV things that happen between missions. This will actually have a first person module, walking around talking to characters on the ship, Mass Effect style, that kind of thing. And so most of the cutscenes they were filming, they had a guy in a mocap suit to be the player, but the player could be male or female and so on. Just to kind of like wander around the space, and there was a sort of a strange, kind of weird, like watching a video game in real life about watching a man wander totally aimlessly while two really venerable actors walk along having a completely serious conversation, and then getting to the end of that conversation and having to record a million different variants on hurry the fuck up and get in the lift. So like I've seen Mark Hamill turn around and go, come on kid, get in the lift, like 14 times. It was great.
Did you get in the lift?
I wasn't. He wasn't saying it to me. And also the other highlight was you can walk away from characters mid conversation if you want, or interrupt them, or cut them off. Or you can walk up to people and just say press use on them and walk away again. You're so used to in video games like that being a thing that you can walk up to a character and then they'll grunt slightly differently every time you press use on them. I watched John Rhys-Davies, who, if you don't know who he is, he played Gimli in Lord of the Rings, and what was the name of his character in Indiana Jones? Where's a fez?
Balak?
Yeah.
Is it Balak or is Balak the film?
I can't remember.
Can't remember.
Anyway, guy in a fez. He's very, very tall, a huge guy, like 6'5" or something. He's massive. Stood there in the middle of a room, just being told to go through grunts as if he's just been sort of interrupted, but not really. So it's just like, duh? What? Ages, brilliant. I don't really I don't know too much about how the game will play, but it's sort of interesting. I hadn't really spent too much time thinking about Squadron 42 as a separate entity from Star Citizen, but now it sort of seems like it's likely to be the thing that comes out first for that game. Obviously, no release dates have been announced, but it seems like the thing that's easiest to finish and that is in the most comprehensible state of planning and completion. Like I saw, cutscenes being filmed from throughout the game, mission stuff being done for substantial chunks of that thing, which is going to, it's going to be a linear, story-driven space combat / FPS thing, and it sounds perfectly good for that. The highlight was talking to Mark Hamill and John Rhys-Davies, but probably the highlight of the entire thing was John Rhys-Davies' understanding of video games. Because he's an incredibly avuncular thespian anyway. But I had an interview where I sat down on a couch with him, Mark Hamill, Chris Roberts, and asked Chris Roberts about writing a game from the player's perspective rather than from the perspective of a FMV character that he kind of drops in to be the player in the cutscenes, which is what the role Mark Hamill played in Wing Commander. At which point, John Rhys Davies half interrupts and goes, "Well, the thing that interests me," but then cuts himself. Actually, well, no, I shouldn't say it that way. What if a game could do the Cuban Missile Crisis? It'd be fantastic training for a diplomat. Totally out of fucking nowhere.
Well, yes.
So I said, what other historical periods would you be interested in simulating using a video game? And he's like, I've always loved the American Revolutionary War. More interesting group of people this side of Periclean Athens. And that was the most off-track and brilliantly off-track an interview has ever gone for me.
Did you then fill him in on the vast number of American Civil War games
I
there
could have
are?
done, actually. No, I asked Chris Roberts what he was planning for after Star Citizen, if it was that. And the other thing, something I'll remember, it's going to be really hard to get this down in an article. If you want to find out more about this, check out the next issue of PC Gamer. Him sort of describe his character operates a mining station out in the depth of space. And it's like, the technology these days is extraordinary. A spaceship 1 kilometer long. A mining station 5 kilometers long. But we're going to have to get pretty big imaginations to cope with the size of space, aren't we? He's honestly my favourite human being now. Like, there's no other successful way of getting old, as far as I can tell. I mean, he's in his 70s. Than that. Just, yeah. Life goal forever now. And also there's a video game.
Whatever.
Did any of you see the FMV they released with Gary Oldman?
I actually haven't seen it yet. I wasn't there on the days Gary Oldman was filming, so...
Oh.
I saw a screen cap of it. It looked like it was firmly entrenched in the uncanny valley.
Yeah, it was surprising because it was surprisingly not that well mocapped. I didn't think in terms of the rigging of the faces that seemed kind of crude by today's standards. But
I didn't see it move, but I saw a kind of layout of just shit they've done to Gary Oldman's face now. Just like freeze frames of him in expressions of shock and rage and stuff. And then like his face just unpeeled as a flat texture. It's fucking horrific.
The weirdest thing with watching them shoot, because God knows how good the final product will be. The rig is obviously really impressive because it's this top of the line for cinema thing. And the cameras they use have like 3 cameras mounted on like an armature that hangs off the front of your face. And on the monitors, you can see what those cameras are receiving, which is like 3 different underlit shots in black and white of the actor's face, so they can get sort of, I guess, topography and motion for a digital image. And it looks like when you watch like a really shit documentary about spelunking or something, and there's someone holding the camera underneath their own face, going, "I'm going deeper into the cave now," that kind of thing, with like a really bad underlit shot of like their lower jaw. It's just that, but 100% of the time, regardless of what the person is doing. Like if they're sitting and reading, you see every tiny little kind of weirdly detailed motion of their face. If they're eating fruit salad, that's incredibly grotesque. It's super weird, but.
Was there a dramatic fruit salad section?
There was a lot of eating fruit salad on that film set.
Oh,
it's not in the game.
Right.
No, it's just...
Get in the lift and eat this fruit salad.
As far as I could tell, there was no eating in the game. But there was the catering did provide fruit salad, which I should probably disclose.
It'd be great to have to do. It'd be great to have to do the sound of being somewhat interrupted whilst eating fruit salad.
Oh, I think as well, it seems like it's going to be completely, as you'd expect, military space fiction. I didn't get a huge sense of it doing something really dramatically different.
No, the clip they revealed is Gary Oldman giving a rousing speech of exactly the kind that you would anticipate were you given rousing speech section to write. I thought it was right. So he takes the fruit salad away from me. But yeah, the music swelling over it was very, very distracting. But maybe they'll fix that. I don't know.
I don't know anything about the fiction. Are there like Kilrathi equivalent in it?
There are aliens in it, but they're not. They're called the
Varnu? No,
it begins with a V.
Vilrathi.
Blah blah blah. Like I actually, I don't like. I got a feeling because like I always found, be completely honest, I found Wing Commander quite cheesy, right? But
don't think you're really going out on a limb saying
No.
that, Chris. I think you're all right.
But something that struck me was that loads of people really like it. And because I did my homework, hadn't seen it in a while, like really earnestly like it. In the way that people really earnestly like Babylon 5. You know? And that's not to disparage Babylon 5, it's just that some things are not to my taste. Or not in their entirety. And also I think, you know, the Cloud Imperium team, a lot of that core top level team are the same people, and it's been the same people for like 20 years. And they don't really see the irony in it, I think, and that's fine to a degree. Like, I sort of felt okay walking away from it going, there could be dumb-looking aliens in this, and nothing will ever get dumber-looking than the Kilrathi, really. You know, in terms of relative seriousness taken in the fiction versus the amount they look like serial mascots.
What's the name of the race in Game of Thrones that Daenerys marries into? Isn't that...
The Dothraki.
Dothraki, okay.
The Kilrathi are big lion people.
Yeah,
They're
the
like,
big-
what if
Lions
Klingons were
Bar, I
cats?
yeah. Cats, and also British character actors. And you know, I when I was there, I was like, you know, man, it must be much better working with CG because you can make much more convincing aliens than the Kilrathi. And that got the response like, what was wrong with the Kilrathi? Like,
Someone stops playing the piano. Everyone looks
it's like, I don't know why that guy was playing the piano. It was super
Fruit
cool.
salad tumbling out of people's mouths.
I will say, like, it was a very impressive setup, and it seemed, for all the concerns I've raised about Star Citizen as a project more generally, it did seem like everybody in that building knew what they were doing and what they were making, even if, or at least, you know, a tremendous amount of professional effort was going into making that thing that they're doing, and it seems like it'll, you know, genuinely be a substantial video game. So that's good.
I really want it to succeed.
Really?
Yeah. There. You're all looking at me as though I
Well, yeah, their ship selling tactics have been pretty sleazy, I think.
Oh yeah, there is that.
I sincerely want them to fail.
No, I just it is such a project of such huge magnitude, and so many people are so invested in it now. It would be incredibly destructive, I think, to the industry as a whole if it tanked. You know, there would be ripples of devastation from that for years to come.
I think that was the thing that impressed me about it is like, like there's so many questions about that project from the outside looking in, and the support it gets from its own fans is devotional to the point of being quite hard to pass.
Oh yeah,
Not in a bad way, just when people are that fanatically invested in something and they won't abide a single question about its status, it's hard to get a read of what's actually happening. From that experience, admittedly, I didn't see the game, you know, but I saw a lot of investment being made into a substantial part of the project, right, on scale with AAA development in other contexts. And that was sort of a relief. And nobody there seemed to be not taking it completely seriously, and nobody seemed massively stressed. Like, you know, I was sort of left to my own devices in the corner to watch this thing happen. So, I mean, I believe the best case scenario for this as a whole is that this is indicative that stuff is just happening quietly and invisibly and expensively around the world, and something will eventually come of it. That's what I hope happens anyway.
What have you guys been playing? Marsh and Graham are looking at each other guiltily. Like, shit, we didn't play anything. Does anyone have anything? I've got something.
Well,
I've got
you
nothing.
should go. You should go first.
Well, I was going to mention quickly Hex Fervor. Did anyone
Oh,
play
yes.
that?
Yeah,
The Hex
briefly.
game. That,
I played it briefly, yeah. But
so that's impressive on both of your counts, because I was not able to play it briefly. I was only able to play it in long and compulsive sessions that could not be stopped for love or money. So it's a puzzle game, a web game where you just... The board is a big hexagon, and it's made up of little hexagonal tiles, about 5 to a side, and down off to the side of that you get 3 pieces, and they're like Tetris pieces in that they're always composed of 4 bits, in this case hexes, and they're weird shapes because they're hexagons that tessellate together, so they're not the Tetris shapes. There is a straight line one. Other than that, they're all pretty exotic, and you have to place them on the board in such a way that you connect one edge of the board to the other. And it doesn't matter if you do it on the shortest edge, where it's only 5 hexes to do that, or whether you cross right across the middle and use 11 hexes to do it. Obviously, that's harder. And when you do that, all the hexes in that line disappear, but that's it, just the line you connected. So all the other ones you used to get there are just left cluttering up the board. And if you get to a point where you can't place any of the 3 options that you've got down the side, then it's game over. So the objective is to clear as many as possible, and if possible, set it up so that placing one piece completes like 3 different lines or 4 different lines, then you get huge bonuses, and a voice says, "Now it's getting good." And it's incredibly addictive. It has the satisfying nature of clearing things, but without the kind of... I find the game 3's incredibly stressful, and to some extent 2048, which is the sort of knockoff, because they fill the board, and there's a way to sort of compress down what it's filling the board with, but you can never totally get rid of it. And so it's just getting worse and worse and worse, and more claustrophobic and more hard to work with. Whereas this Hex game, it doesn't get worse over time, really. You can, like, initially it will. You start with a blank board, so it can only get worse from there. But you fill it up, and then you clear a bunch of it, and then you fill it up a bit more. And you kind of, like, if you're playing well, you're getting a little bit of clutter, but then when you, set up your massive combo where it's going to go do 4 lines at once, not only does that get you a lot of points, but it also just clears a huge chunk of the board. And sometimes after that, you're back almost to where you started, and it's all clear again. And so that's, I think, why I find it compulsive, because it's not depressing. It can get better. You can make a really nice, neat, empty board and just keep playing. You
do eventually lose, though, right? I mean, there's a high score table, so presumably it's not a game.
That's only because the people who aren't on it are still playing.
Oh, I see. Right.
No, it is. I don't know that it's, provably
finite.
Provably finite. I think it's possible to play forever, because I've certainly got back to the point where I've only got like 4 or 5 dots on the whole board, and that's after I've got like 30,000 points. And so if I can get back to there from there, then presumably I can get back to there from anywhere. But yeah, the score is kind of meaningless because you can survive for so long. If you just wanted to survive and play really cautiously, you could just keep going and going and going. It would just take days to get a score. But it's much more fun if you build up to these combos, because it's a massive gamble. If you set up, in order to make like a line, if you like just put one line down one of those edges that's 5 hexes long, it's possible for that to complete 5 different lines all going out from there, and the line you're placing it on, and like I think 2 more in other directions, because hexes have so many different axes of desolation. And if you set that up and then you don't get the piece that needs to go there, then you've just filled the whole fucking board. If it's anything else, then it's just game over. And then when you get it and it clears the whole board, it's really good.
Is there a page anywhere on the site that explains all this? Because I played it for 5 minutes or something like that, long enough to look at it and drop pieces on the board and clear lines and go, oh, it's like Tetris with hexes, and then fill up the board and lose, and then go, okay, I don't get why this is interesting. But to hear you describe it now, it sounds like that would be a really interesting challenge, and I want to go back and play it again. But looking at the website, I was just like, what is this?
I didn't know that the objective was to make those lines for a long time. I just sort of did that by accident. At first I thought it was like to group together all the same colours. That doesn't help. That loses you the game really quickly. But no, I haven't found any explanation. And it's also very, very easy to go for ages without making any combos at all if you're not going for it. And so if you don't get a combo, you don't know that there's a bonus for getting a combo. And
no, I didn't get any combos. And I didn't realise that you just had to connect any one side to any other side. I thought you had to go like all the way across or something like that, horizontally at any height.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah,
so it's lines in any direction, and because they're hexes, there's 3 directions.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just has to touch opposite sides.
The music in it is maddening.
I quite like the music in it. It's so incongruous, but it's fun.
I guess it's probably only like a minute and a half or something, and you're going to play the game for fucking 6 hours. I'm also hopelessly addicted to Big Pharma.
Oh yeah,
which I've gone back to.
Wicksteed.
Are you playing it?
No. Sorry.
We talked about it when we had him on, and I just started playing it like 2 days before, and I played nothing else and was obsessed with it. And then right after that, Metal Gear Solid came out. I was obsessed with that for a month or something. And now that I've weaned myself off Metal Gear a little bit, I've gone back to Big Pharma. And I've finally started the intermediate level. Like, the levels are just sort of like categories of challenges. So there's like 5 different categories. They are difficulty settings, but also within each difficulty setting, there's can you make $1 million? Can you achieve this level of profit over 10 years? Can you make this many of this particular type of cure? And the one I'm interested in really is the one where you just have to make a bunch of money. And I did that. And my first ever game on beginner, I got very close to the master rating, because there's 3 tiers of success. So you can pass the challenge, and you keep on playing until you pass the expert level, and then you keep on playing until you pass the master level. And I was like about $100 away from getting the 10 million I needed for the master level when the time limit expired. And so I eventually went on to intermediate and thought, okay, I'll easily get the basic score, but can I get the intermediate or the expert score or the master one on intermediate? And I just ruined my life. I just destroyed my whole company, because I'm used to just like hiring a bunch of scientists to research the different machines. It's all about making these conveyor belts, putting ingredients through the conveyor belts to different machines to get their concentration levels to the right level, to activate their good ingredients and deactivate their bad ingredients. And at the basic level, that's all it is. But you have to unlock those machines. And initially, you've only got access to one that increases concentration by 1 and one that decreases concentration by 1. And you'll have an ingredient that has a concentration of like 3, and you've got to get it to 20. So it's going to have to go through a fuck of a lot of those machines unless you want to research some new ones. And the next one up is like increases by 3 or decreases by 3. But then the really important ones are the ones that double or halve the concentration, because then you can obviously make bigger leaps. And I was just used to having those from pretty early on. And so I hired enough scientists to research both of those at once. And that's quite a lot of scientists. And scientists draw a salary. And I realized I'd set up a few little, common cold medicine lines, just things where it literally had to go through 2 machines and it was job done. I got a positive effect and no side effects, ship it. But that's a low level cure, so you only make like $50 per package you sell. And that meant I was only making about $150 a day because I had 3 of these lines. And I'd spent all my money setting those lines up because it only costs a few thousand, but you only start with a few thousand. And I realized, shit, I'm spending like $600 a day on scientists to research the shit I need to make better production lines. And that means I can't afford to buy any more warehouse space to double up on these products that I'm already making. And so I had to take out a loan. You can take out 3 loans in your life. And there's like 3 different loan companies, and any one time you can only have 1 loan from potentially each of them. So I just took the smallest loan with the least interest and the quickest repay rate, the lowest daily payment that I had to pay back, and tried to gear up to like level 2. Research my level 2 devices, get to all of the level 2 cures are you make something that already has a cure in it, and then you upgrade that cure to a better effect. So it always starts with something that already cures the cold, but now it cures bronchitis. And to do that, it requires dramatic changes in concentration, and sometimes to mix it with another drug or something like that. And that turns out to be quite expensive to place those newer high level machines. And I didn't have a lot of money because I hadn't actually gotten into profit yet from my old machines. And it got to the point where I had to take out the second loan. And then by the time I took out the third loan and I bought loads of more space and I was trying to set up these second tier production lines, I just realized there's no way for me to get out of this hole ever. I had to fire all my science staff, I had to fire all my explorers who were going out to find new ingredients. And I realized I just can't make any more profit. I got halfway through making this really profitable drug line, and I just ran out of money to buy the last device. And I'm like $15,000 in the hole. And that's not a huge amount of money, but I'm never going to make it back in with my current production lines. And I can't take any more loans because I've already borrowed from everyone I possibly can. And so I'm just destitute. I just owe like $700,000 and I can't make anything. I just had to quit the game. And so I now I'm playing intermediate properly, and I'm doing it more conservatively and not trying to research everything at once. I think loads of stuff must change. I think either research speed changes, or maybe the amount of money you start with changes, or there's some safety net that wasn't that used to be there that isn't on intermediate.
Is it still as satisfying to go through each of the steps to build up your company in that way, or is the reason that you're trying to rush ahead so fast that I've done all this before, just come on, get on with it, and you want to get to the more challenging parts of it?
It's always true to the same extent. You're always dissatisfied with your current level of cures, and you always want to get to that next level and make more profit. I suppose sometimes you find a happy middle ground, but it really depends on just what you get that playthrough, because it's quite a randomized game. The cures always upgrade to the same other cures, but the things you're dealing with is ingredients, which is just like, we found this fucking mosquito and we extracted its blood, and that turns out to give you anemia, but also cures the common cold. And then, like, what properties those ingredients have are randomized, and the space you have available to you is randomized, and what other spaces are available to buy are randomized. And I just seem to end up in a situation where the stuff I could buy, I'm in a new game now and I'm doing much better, and I set up a lot of good migraine lines. Got like 4 or 5 lines of migraine medicine production. And then was moving on to, I was trying to find like a level 3 cure. That was my main goal. And I had one, but the only way I could make it was with a catalyst, which means I got to import a second drug from another production line and have it go into a multi-mixer. And that is a huge pain to unlock, and it's a huge pain to place because it's huge. And then it's got to have 2 inputs and 1 output, so 3 different conveyor belts have to go to it without crossing each other. And then you find out it works at half efficiency. So it's twice as slow as everything else. So for every 1 cycle every 2 cycles that everyone else does, it does 1 cycle. So that means you need 2 of them, and you need 2 of them in parallel. So you need to split your conveyor belts so that they feed 4 separate inputs and then come out with 2 different outputs. And at the time, I thought you couldn't cross conveyor belts because you kind of physically can't. Like if you try and do it, it says you can't. You can make a junction, but then things are flowing in and flowing out, and I didn't think you could control how that happened. It turns out you can, but trying to connect 2 multi-mixes in parallel without crossing the wires is actually impossible. It can't be done. The only way you can do it is take a third input, so that you've got 2 different ingredients, or 2 copies of the same ingredient coming from 2 different inputs in your factory, and then the other ingredient that you're going to mix them with is just 1 input, but you split it so that you have 4 input lines, right? And it's possible to do that without crossing any of those 4 input lines or any of the 2 output lines with any of the input lines. And that's to mix 1 catalyst.
My nose is bleeding.
I'm now in the situation where I am trying to make a tier 4 cure, and it involves mixing in 3 different catalysts. So I need to bring in 1 drug, mix a catalyst with it. That produces something else. Then I need to mix another catalyst to activate the 3rd effect. Then I need to mix another catalyst to mix its 4th effect. And it turned out that the first catalyst I needed was the one I was already using for a previous cure. And the next one was something else. And then the 3rd catalyst I needed was an effect that was actually on the original ingredient I'd imported, the base one I was working with. And so I could either import a new copy of that ingredient, but then I realized because my whole production line was working at half efficiency because I couldn't set up the things in parallel because it was just a fucking nightmare. I could split off the original belt that was feeding it in the first place and then just take half of those drugs and feed them back into the same process like 25 steps later. So the drug ends up getting mixed with itself because it has its own catalyst, but it was lost in the process somewhere online. I just felt like a complete mad scientist. I can mix it with itself.
Have you played Infinifactory, Tom?
Yes.
Because there's a lot of that sort of thinking in Infinifactory.
This is much more about... it's not like a puzzle game, really. There isn't one answer. It's very much just... like, of these 20 different things you could make with these 17 different ingredients and these 16 different machines, what ones do you want to try and make and how profitable will that end up being? And after that, can you tweak it a bit? It does have a lot of the same appeal in that after you've built something, you're like, couldn't I take out that conveyor belt, or couldn't I rotate this one so it would fit into the space better, and that kind of stuff.
It's also got presumably the same thing of seeing what you're being asked to do or what you've asked yourself to do, and having that kind of like mind shock of like, fuck, why? No, no, no. And then, oh, it's fine.
Yep.
I've been playing Prison Architect,
Hey.
which is also a game about creating strange systems and funneling objects through them. But the objects are human beings. So I played Prison Architect 2 years ago, because it's been in early access for 3 years, and then haven't really been back to it since then. But it left early access last Tuesday and was properly released. And in that release, among many additions like gangs and bug fixes and stuff like that, they added a new escape mode. And have we talked about escape modes in the podcast at all while I've been away, or Prison Architect since its release?
Don't believe so.
Coolio. Escape mode, it's described by Introversion as turning the game on its head, and that's a pretty good account of it. Because instead of being the architect of a prison, you are, to begin with, the controller of just an individual prisoner within a prison. You arrive on a bus and you're dropped off outside of the prison, and guards come and take you to your cell, and that's it. You're now just one little guy. You walk around with WSD, you look around with mouse. You left click to punch. You right click to hide contraband.
This is a weird reversal, isn't it? Because this started as a mode for Subversion, where after you got... Subversion was a heist game they were going to make, and after you got arrested on the heist, you would be taken to a jail, and they thought, well, you should be able to escape from the jail, so we'll build a prison simulator. And then Chris had so much fun building a prison simulator that he realised that was more fun than Subversion.
No,
so
wait.
he built a prison.
Now they're going all the way back to the beginning.
Oh, this prison simulator is great, but those inmates seem to have loads of fun escaping. Maybe we should make a game about escaping from a prison. But then what's the backstory for these prisoners? How did they get arrested? Couldn't they be involved in some kind of heist?
We call it recursion.
It's a really clever idea, and there's something so compelling about the notion that you are playing a game where the simulation wasn't built for the genre of game that you're playing. Like, that's just an exciting idea, to know that the simulation is that robust that it can survive multiple different genres of the game. And Dwarf Fortress does something similar. So Dwarf Fortress has obviously Fortress mode, where you build a fortress, but it also has Adventure mode, which is just a traditional roguelike, but you can play it in the same world as your fortresses. And if you've got a fortress going, or a fortress that's failed, then in Adventure mode you can go explore your failed fortress and fight through it as if it's a dungeon in a normal roguelike. So this feels a little bit like that, and it's dead exciting for that reason. At the same time, it's also a bit broken for that reason, and they make a point of saying, they haven't really changed any of the systems. The underlying simulation is still there. You're just interacting with those same systems in a different way. And I kind of wish they'd changed more of those systems, but I'll get to that. So I played it a whole bunch over the weekend, and after a few false starts, downloaded a prison from the Steam Workshop that marked itself as working with escape mode. Because not all of them do, although you can play the mode on any prison you want, including the 12,000 that are on the Steam Workshop so far. A lot of them aren't suited to the mode. They just wouldn't be very much fun. So I found one that said that it would work with escape mode, and joined it as a little prisoner with tats all over my face. And then what you do is, to begin with, just create mischief. You smash shit up, you punch people in the face. And by doing that, you gain reputation points, and those reputation points can then be spent upon reputation, or reputation traits, I suppose you should call them. Those are things like the deadly trait, which increases the chance that when you punch someone in the face, you will kill them instantly. Or the skilled fighter trait, that increases the chance that when you punch someone in the face, you will get their weapon. Or the quick trait, which makes you go quicker, or I think 3 others. And you can also spend your reputation points to recruit other prisoners to your crew. And the reason to do that is that you can then control each of them individually using WSD. You can have a whole posse and control one of them and tell all the others to just follow the main guy that you're controlling. Or when you die, or one of your guys gets killed, you then switch to controlling the others. So if you've got one guy and you die, then that's it, it's game over. But if you've got 2 guys, you just hop over, like Rainbow Six used to work. And so I spent a little while punching my toilet and breaking my bed.
That's what you do.
You get reputation points.
Wow, that guy's a real bed puncher.
And then
That guy just punched his toilet.
the
I want
guards,
to work for him.
guards immediately see you do this and come storming in, and they beat you unconscious. And then, depending on how badly hurt you are, they either take you to the infirmary where you get fixed up, but ultimately you end up in solitary. You get put in solitary. And if you don't want to endure the 4, 8, 12, 20 hours of punishment or whatever you've been given, you could spend a reputation point in order to skip your punishments. And if you've got like 6 guys and they're all in solitary, it's still only 1 reputation point to skip punishments for all of them. So you're never waiting around. But then the challenge becomes, okay, how are you going to escape from this prison? How are you going to fight your way out or turn the systems of the prison against itself? And so I put together a posse of like 5 or 6 guys and leveled them all up. And initially thought maybe I could try tunneling my way out. Because like you're getting these reputation points by punching people in the face. And there's something... lots of games are violent, but here you are literally just killing people in exchange for points. And it feels a little bit grindy. But if you go to, say, a workshop, as this prison had, then you can walk around it and little bits of contraband will appear that take you a little while to pick up. You hold down right mouse button on them, you'll pick them up. And if no guard notices you or no camera notices you doing that, you've now got a bit of contraband that you can then stash somewhere else in the prison, so you can hide it in your toilet.
And punch the toilet.
Or
Stop stealing my stuff, toilet.
Just keep it in your pocket and skirt around.
Is contraband specific, or is it just contraband? Contraband as a kind
it's
of
specific.
Generic...
So, like, I went to the
you're
workshop.
talking about like pliers and stuff like that, rather than
hammers, knives,
okay.
That kind of thing, drugs. I went to the workshop and I got a wooden pickaxe, which I don't know if that's a thing prisoners build or just an explicit Minecraft reference. But
Today, prisoners, our workshop class is escaping tools.
you also have metal detectors in the prison, and this is what the prison I was playing on advertised itself as being like a supermax prison. So it's got armoured guards and metal detectors everywhere and stuff like that. The metal detectors seem to just detect all kinds of contraband. So the wooden pickaxe, little red light flashes, man will come over and cuff you and search you if you get caught with it. So
Chris
you can
today,
skirt around those.
Sorry, I watched a playthrough where Chris Delay was showcasing escape mode, and he said that the wooden pickaxe was one of the best items in the game because it doesn't set off metal detectors.
Huh.
So
I
it's
might,
not supposed to.
might have been wrong about that, or I might have had something else in my pockets, or it might be one of the many bugs I encountered while playing this. So you can take your wooden pickaxe back to your cell, wait for it to be nighttime, and then use it on your toilet. So yeah, you do beat up your toilet.
Does it have to be a toilet? Can't you dig like next to it?
Seems to be. Essentially, the little help button says use it on your toilet to start digging a tunnel.
Seems like the worst place to dig, like both because you need the toilet and also because there's surely a pipe directly by the toilet. Like,
And it's
you're going to
full
hit
of
that
water.
right away.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't quite
Bed
understand the
seems
logic.
like a
of that.
much better thing.
Well,
to dig
and also, it's a really conspicuous thing in the room to be missing or broken. Because either if they can't see that it's broken, they'll definitely smell that you're not using it.
Well, the artwork suggests that the toilet is still there. It's just floating over a hole. But you do this and it skips to like an underground layer, just as it does when you're laying pipes or electricity wires in the main build mode.
But now you're laying yourself.
Takes a
There's a lot of that in prison, Tom.
it takes a long time to destroy each tile. So I did this. I destroyed 4 tiles, and then I was like, "Oh, this is quite tedious." And I was trying to, you can't zoom out as far as you can in the main architect mode, so I was trying to work out how close to the edge of the map am I? Like, how long is this going to take? And I came out of my hole. Instantly, a guard saw me, burst into the room, beat me unconscious, put me in cuffs, took me to solitary, searched me, took away my wooden pickaxe, and then workmen came in and filled up my hole. So by the time I got back to the room, that was all gone. And so I thought, well, like, there are lots of ways that your prison in Prison Architect goes wrong. Sometimes that's like explicit events, in the same way as Dwarf Fortress has royals. Like you eventually get royalty will come and stay in your fortress and make demands, like they want chairs built of diamond, and so if you don't supply it to them, they get cross, and things start to go wrong when the regals get cross. Similarly, in Prison Architect, the mayor will phone you up and
He wants
say,
a diamond chair made of
Well,
prisoners.
"We've got lots of political pressure at the moment, and so because of that, you have to remove your visitation center. And if you don't remove your visitation center, then you're going to get fined every day until you do that. But if you remove your visitation center, then now your prisoners aren't getting their family need met as much, and so they're more likely to riot or become dissatisfied in some way that then causes knock-on effects. And so one of the ways that things can go wrong is if you build too much and you've not growing your power supply enough, because you build power generators and put capacitators on it and that sort of stuff, then you'll get a blackout. And when a blackout happens, phones don't work, and the chefs can't cook, and the TVs and the cells don't work, and all that sort of stuff. So I thought, well, then I'll try and break into the generator room and fuck up the generator to see if I can cause some riots. And so I got my little posse together, cornered a guard when no one was looking so it didn't set off any alarms, and knocked them unconscious and stole their keys and their shotgun, and then fought my way into the generator room, opening doors I wasn't supposed to be able to open and getting into areas that set off alarms, and got into the generator and then kicked the shit out of all the capacitators in the generator and cast a wing of the prison into darkness. Because each generator is on a separate wire, essentially. So it only knocks part of the prison. And the next day, the riot started.
This is fucking cool.
This felt really fucking cool. This was the most satisfying moment in the weekend I spent playing the game. And the thing is, I can't entirely tell, were they rioting because of something I had done? They could have been rioting because of something I had done, or they could have just been on the verge of a riot anyway, and it was just coincidence. Certainly, knocking down the generators, the way the simulation works, I know enough about it to know that that would increase dissatisfaction in a whole bunch of different ways and could lead to a riot. But the cause and effect there isn't entirely clear, because things are just happening. The simulation's so rich that things are just happening all the time anyway. You're walking around and you might not see a riot specifically, but you'll see fights break out and that kind of thing. You'll see people getting taken to the infirmary and people getting taken to solitary and other people trying to break out and that kind of thing. And so that felt really cool, because it could have been because of what I did, but I don't know for sure that it was, or whether it was just coincidence, and that's a little bit of a weird thing. But anyway, eventually I got my posse together and I beat up another guard and I stole his taser this time and his cell keys, and I made a break for it, opening the front gates and then the other front gate and then the other front gate. This is a well-protected prison. And then I got shot by a shotgun, my main guy, and that knocked me unconscious. And then immediately you switch to controlling one of the others. And you're like, keep going, pick up the keys that unconscious sad fuck just dropped. And I managed to get one of my guys killed, but get 3 of them to escape. Such that I ended up back down to only the original guy that I started with. He didn't escape. He was the only one that didn't escape. The rest of his crew got out or got killed. And now I'm just on my own again. And I'm still in the prison. And I got lots of reputation points, but I'm already max level and stuff like that. And so I decided, I could recruit more crew and try and go through this process again, but fuck it, I'm pretty sure I have to get all of the crew out for it to actually count as a win condition. Might be wrong about that. Might only be that one guy. I could have maybe abandoned the rest of the crew and just got this one guy out, but it seems like maybe you have to get everyone out. So I thought, fuck it, I'll go alone. Did the same thing. Knocked out a guard, stole his taser, steal his keys. Slip through some back rooms this time to get outside quicker and drawing less attention to myself. Make a bolt for it. Get through the road gate. Get through the second road gate. I'm home clear. Anyone that comes close to me, I can just tase them. It's dead easy to aim. They're all miles away. The only thing that's near me is a truck with some guards on the back of it, and they don't get out of the truck once they're inside it. They don't seem to count. They're just like driving down the road, and there's no collision detection on the cars. You can like clip through them, and it's absolutely fine. And I'm running down this road, and I'm inches away from the edge of the map where the win condition lies, and suddenly I'm in handcuffs.
What?
And I don't know why.
What?
It's either just a weird bug that has no explanation, or one of the guards that was inside the truck while I was running alongside it magically cuffed me instantly as they drove past.
Drive-by cuffing. Wow.
Oi, Trev, there's a guy getting out here. Stop scuffling.
There's a toilet puncher.
At this point...
Your days of toilet punching are over.
Toilet puncher.
At this point, it gets worse, because
Back to your toilet.
although I'm cuffed, the game thinks that I haven't yet surrendered. Because it's possible...
Toilet puncher never surrendered.
It's possible before you get knocked unconscious after a fight to surrender, to put your own hands in the air, in which case the guards won't beat you up, they'll just come over and cuff you. And you get more reputation points for doing that if you end your fight on your own terms. Shiv the guy that you really didn't like with purpose and then surrender, because you don't want to cause any more trouble. But the game doesn't recognize that I've surrendered or that my fight is over, so the UI prompt to end fight and to surrender are still on the screen, still saying press space, and I'm pressing space and it's not doing anything. The only thing it's doing is giving me reputation points. And the reputation points seem to scale relative to how many reputation points you've already got banked on this current encounter, perhaps. So the more I press it, the number in the top is increasing exponentially until...
He surrenders so much. You just won't believe how much he surrenders.
The entire prison's up on the walls of the prison watching the most spectacular act of surrender they've ever seen.
What's already in hand.
The final moments of toilet punching.
It won't work. I won't fucking surrender. I'm cuffed. And I can walk very slowly and I can get to the edge of the map, but you can't exit the map while you're cuffed. It doesn't count as escaping. And eventually I've got millions of reputation points when they all vanish. And even the ones I gained legitimately just go away. So I'm still max level, so it doesn't really matter that much unless I want to get a crew. But I'm now down to 0 reputation points, and I'm still counted as aggro. So when the guards finally come over to me, they get their batons out, and although I'm just cuffed on the ground, they just beat me unconscious. They take me to the infirmary, heal me up a little bit, and put me in a solitary cell. And now I've got no reputation points left.
No.
And so I can't skip the punishment. So I just put it on fast forward. And the biggest riot ever breaks out. And I'm in like a little solitary cell by the main gate. And most of the time riots break out, or they have done in this prison so far. It's just been like 10 to 15 prisoners and the armoured guards and the guards, they take care of it themselves. But there's a kind of fog of war effect where you can only see what your little character can actually see. And so I can only see like a narrow passage in front of my solitary cell through the window and the door, I guess. And everything else is just in black and white. And just I start seeing riot police storming past in this little window that I can see, where obviously the AI has called them in. This is the thing you can do in the management mode when a really bad riot breaks in. You can call in the riot police and they turn up in trucks outside with shotguns and riot shields and stuff like that, and they just mow everyone down. So I'm just sat in this solitary cell listening, watching these guys stream past and hearing the noises and the tasers going off and riot's terrible. And then my cell doors open because my punishment is over. And I am immediately shotgunned in the face twice. Even though I'm still in cuffs inside, because no guard has come over. But the game still thinks that I'm aggroed. And so it still thinks that...
He's resisting,
subdue him! Shotgun in the face twice, knocked unconscious again, taken to the infirmary, back to my cell afterwards, and this just repeats again and again and again. Meanwhile, more and more riots are breaking out.
Can you not die from being shotgun in the face?
You can do, but if you get knocked unconscious, then they stop. So there has been times where I've just been shot once.
Be reasonable. Toilet Puncher's unconscious now that we shot him in the face whilst in handcuffs in his own cell.
There have been times where I've just been shot once and instantly killed, but on this guy I've got the tough trait, which gives you more health, so that kind of guards against that a little bit, so you can be shotgunned a couple of times.
Too tough.
So eventually, after repeating this, the surrendering thing seems to go away. I mean, I finally seem to be able to surrender.
Your punishment is over. Like your sentence is served.
Well, I keep getting taken back to my cell.
Your solitary sentence.
My solitary
right.
has
I thought
ended.
you meant your whole prison sentence was over.
No.
That'd be an amazing time for it to happen.
Just released. Prisoners do keep
free
getting
man.
released and arriving as everything's going on. So during one of my escape attempts, there was just a guy walking through the gate with release written underneath. He's just wandering along.
That's what I meant to do it, yeah.
Shotgun blasts, ricocheting around him. But so I get taken back to my cell, and eventually it seems to recognise that I've surrendered. And then the fog of war effect starts to close in, because after I've just been taken back to my cell. And normally it just stops at the edge of your cell, because you can see everything that's in your room, but nothing that's inside. But now it doesn't. Now the fog of war effect continues and consumes the entire room, and then I just vanish. I just disappear. And I can
This is an amazing metaphor.
The walls are closing in. I've been in prison for too long.
So Toilet Puncher goes blind at the end.
No, I could still use WASD
Oh.
to walk around.
Blind people can.
Yeah, I can still walk around, but I can't see myself, and the rest of the prison is in black and white, so I can't see any other people. I can still see the world through the black and white, and at this point, in real life, because obviously not as the prisoner, I go for dinner. I leave the game running, and I record it while I'm away in case I miss anything, and I come back, and it's just quiet. I can't hear anyone in the prison.
I'm deaf as well.
And then my gate's open because I've served all my punishments, and I don't seem to be fighting anyone anymore, and I still can't see myself, and the world's just black and white. And so I just walk out my cell, and I just start walking, and I'm past the yard and stuff, and I can see through the fog of war into the black and white world that just everything has fucked. Like, normally when stuff gets broken, workmen come along and they fix it. That's what they do. They do it automatically if stuff gets smashed. But just there are entire cell blocks where every jail door is smashed, and the drains and the shower heads and the shower rooms are all broken, and
Are there any prisoners?
I don't know. I can't see anyone because of the fog of war, and I can't. And normally, you can through the fog of war, you can see doors open as people moving around, and there just aren't really doors opening. It's just like ghost town. Like everyone's been killed or something, and they're right. And I just invisibly just walk up to the front door, and I wait a little bit, and eventually it opens, which suggests that there's still a few staff members walking around, and I get through each of the gates. And then I get down to like the road gates where those are, and those are just fucking destroyed. Like, I'm maybe the last prisoner in this place, and every other guard's been killed, and all the prisoners have escaped. And those are just destroyed. And so I just walk through them and just invisibly walk down and exit the map. Game over.
That's fucking great.
This is the weirdest Paul Newman movie I've ever seen.
No, this does need like the Shawshank Redemption voiceover.
Yeah.
Like, that is, yeah, no. That's the most. I like to think that riot, that mega riot that ended the prison, happened because of how famous Toilet Puncher became in those final moments on the road.
Didn't you see how many times he surrendered? I'm just going to beat up all the guards.
Justice for Toilet Puncher! They went to war for him.
The game over screen like gives you the list of your crew and whether they escaped or died, and then it says victims, and there's a box there that fits in about 30 guards, and they come up individually quite quickly, ding 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 ding, all the people you killed, and the number of guards that died in this fills the box, and then just the sound effect keeps going for ages. The box is full, but still it's just ding 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 of all the guards that died, and then your score counts up. And I don't know again if this is a bug, but my score was -2 billion or something like this.
We frown on this sort of thing. generally.
And then my escape time was like 23 days, 8 hours, 45 minutes, something like that.
You can never play this game again now. Like, there
That's
is
the best
no
experience.
stopping that story. Going blind at the end, like that is like, oh man.
It was pretty good. It was pretty good. I think probably better for the bugs, because I think otherwise, although it's really cool and I really like the simulation, I think there's lots of things that are quite grindy about it, just having to smash shit up until you get the reputation points too. And I think maybe it is the kind of thing that maybe everyone should just play once, because I'm not sure even with a completely different prison downloaded from the workshop, it still would just be guards and cells and generators and the same systems. You know, it's not set up to introduce new things. But it is cool. And it's a nice little added bonus for version 1.0 of a game that's been around for a few years.
I'm glad I told my conveyor belt story first. Doesn't really matter.
I have been playing the beta for Star Wars Battlefront again, which is there's a new one. And I appreciate probably quite a lot of people have played it because it's an open beta. And I know a lot of people have enjoyed it, which is fine.
You can be wrong if you like.
Yeah. Well, I've been trying to understand it because I think it's really notably bad, and I don't normally like taking this point on the podcast to like actually kick the shit out of something, but in this case I feel it's justified because they're asking 55 quid plus announced today a £50 season pass.
Jesus Christ.
For what is by I think an inarguable distance the worst game DICE have ever made. Like a developer that were pretty good, right? Like they've had some real down points and they've struggled with the launch of Battlefield a few times, but I was trying to think this, even like the weaker Battlefields, even something like Battlefield 4, which had a bad launch, even Hardline has a sufficiently advanced game underneath the flair and the presentation and the amazing sound design, all of which is still true of this, to kind of sustain a really really engaged community and to provide cool videos of rad shit, right? Like people strapping C4 to quad bikes and ramping them off a Jeep that is itself rigged with C4 in order to take out a fighter jet. That kind of like weird systemic stuff that's always been in the Battlefield series. Battlefront feels really, really different, and weirdly it feels quite like in the old Battlefront games in some way, which were quite janky and not the most elegant shooters. But it's so stripped down that it loses their kind of mass, kind of sprawling Star Wars fandom charm, and replaces it with, honestly, I think the worst design multiplayer shooter I've played in recent years. So it's Battlefield style, asymmetrical, objective based shooting. Lots of players on the main mode. It doesn't have a single player campaign. It will have some kind of co-op wave survival feature as well. The main thing about it, the thing people will come to it for, and the thing that's worth trying it out for, is it looks brilliant. Like DICE are way ahead of a lot of people when it comes to sound design, and when it comes to like really amazing use of the Frostbite engine to create things that look like cinema. Like the single greatest thing in it is its smoke and explosion effects, because they look like when an AT-ST dies or explodes, it looks like a firecracker going off inside a cardboard box, which is exactly how it looks in the films, right? There's a really specific look to those old miniature-based Star Wars stuff, and that suggests, the amount of fidelity that's gone into that and stuff. And the sound's obviously perfect. There's even some things about the game itself that sort of work in Star Wars fantasy, which I'll get to. And there's that effect, I think, is punctured by a few things. It's punctured by the multiplayer-ness of it, where the animation never quite syncs up with how good everything else looks. So players still look floaty and weird and don't quite match up to the environment. It's punctured by very pointedly the hero characters. Through a system that is dumb that I'll explain, you can become Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader for a brief period of time, basically for as long as you can keep a kill combo going. And so there's a lot of emphasis on them and moving quickly around the map, which is crucially something you never really see them do, right? You never really see Vader do anything other than, walk. And they take Vader's movement thing to help him get around a big battlefield quickly from the moment in, I believe it's the moment in The Empire Strikes Back when he confronts Luke at the end and he sort of floats down the stairs, like he almost with a cape up behind him. He sort of like force floats. And he does it exactly once. And this game sort of takes that and goes like, what if that was Vader's main method of transportation? That he kind of like propelled himself upwards like Dracula and then down again. And so the experience of encountering Darth Vader, who otherwise looks and sounds like Darth Vader, is of a great big black winged shape, sort of like drifting like someone's lost kite across the battlefield before force choking a man and then getting like hit by when someone crashes a snowspeeder into him. And that sounds great, actually. And Luke Skywalker just leaps like Mario. Yeah, it's dumb. And I'm saying this as somebody, like, I spoke to a friend who really likes it, who were like, no, well, maybe it's for Star Wars fans, not for shooter fans. I was literally wearing a Star Wars t-shirt when he told me that. But, the sounds and stuff are right. But the weird thing about it is, and I'm sure people will say that I'm wrong about this, so I've played a whole bunch of it. And in its main mode, the mode people will want to play, the one that has all the vehicles, the biggest maps, the most substantial access to the toys the game offers you, I have never, ever, ever seen the Rebels win. Once. I haven't even seen them come close. And the reasoning for this is one of the most weird design decisions I think I've ever seen a shooter make. And it takes, so the way I would say it is, if you're designing a multiplayer game, or especially a competitive game, you have to assume that most players will take the path of least resistance. And the game obviously really understands this, because it's what COD understands. Right? Call of Duty is about minimum resistance to just running in a big circle shooting men. And Call of Duty works best, really, as a mass market game when it doesn't pile too many objectives around. Just run somewhere and shoot the man, and that won't be wrong. You won't get told off for doing that. That you won't be out of timing with the rest of your team. You won't miss out on an objective. You just run and shoot the man and fire the gun and get the points, and that'll be fine. And Battlefield has understood that to a progressive degree, from being a very objective-based game to being, much more focused on, like, here's some control points, go and get them, but just shoot the men, you'll be fine. And this game, understands it even more, to the extent that all the guns are hugely inaccurate. So you just run and you shoot a blaster that kind of goes wherever, and everyone's shooting wherever, and it's fine. Then you fall over, but you're back, and so on. It's very breezy. And but they've tied this to a asymmetrical, objective-based mode where the Imperials have to guide two AT-AT walkers in the Hoth map. This is to the big power generator, so they can blow it up. And the AT-ATs walk of their own accord. It's possible to jump in and fire the gun from them, but the actual movement, they will always be moving forwards. And they're totally invulnerable. The Imperials win if the AT-ATs get to the end of the track. So functionally, the Imperials win after a certain amount of time. That's just and so the Rebels' job is to pause or stop the clock, basically. So if you're an Imperial, if you're on the Empire side, running and shooting the man is always good. It's always the right idea. As long as you're running and inconveniencing the rebels in some way, fine. Doesn't really matter when you do that. Doesn't matter how you do it. Just do it. You'll be, sometimes you might have to do it in a specific place would be more optimal than somewhere else. Broadly speaking, it's quite a linear map. You'll be fine.
Just kill the dudes.
Kill the men's with the pew pew space gun. Sometimes you're Darth Vader. Look at the stuff. Go, ooh. That's the game. If you're the rebels, you have to capture one of 2 capture points. You then have to hold the capture point for an indeterminate amount of time until it summons one of them or both of them. I still haven't figured out how this quite works. Summons a Y-Wing, which will then come and bomb the walkers, which makes them briefly vulnerable to damage for a set period of time. At which point you can damage them with any weapon you want. Your ground weapons, any deployables you have, anything like that. And it is reportedly kind of easy. There are things that can take the walkers out quite quickly in that circumstance. But that requires a team of 20 people, 20 aside, to cohere around 2 initial objectives, and then to kind of agree on a target for a third thing. And that requires text chat. The game will have no inbuilt voice chat on PC. And even though it's not massively complicated, it's a couple of degrees of complication higher than what the Imperials have to do. And this ties into, for example, so they've gotten rid of the battlefield thing of having an airfield at the back where people queue up to get in a helicopter. Instead, as you're running around, you'll see power-up tokens on the ground. And they spawn seemingly randomly on the battlefield. And if you pick up, some of them will just be a one-off sticky grenade that you can throw, or a turret you can set up. And then sometimes you'll see one that's like a little picture of a TIE fighter or an X-Wing, and you run over to that, and then it'll flash up at the bottom. And then you can use it to transform into an X-Wing. And your character kind of kneels and puts their finger to the air and is like,
"Turn me into an X-Wing, boss."
Yeah. And then then you're an X-Wing. And you can fly around, and the air controls are appalling on PC. It works a lot better on PlayStation, but the sensitivity is incredibly, incredibly low. So to do a full turn, you're doing that thing of running your mouse multiple times in the same direction over the mouse pad. It's grim. And then you're an X-Wing until you die, or you're a TIE fighter until you die. And at different points in the map, you might get a snow speeder or a TIE interceptor or something else. That's also how you become Darth Vader, is you find the Darth Vader token, and then you can kneel down and go I want to be Darth Vader now. And then you get a little mini cutscene where you walk into the map as Darth Vader. Which is sort of fine in that it's equitable, and it makes the distribution of those things random enough to prevent the queuing problem the Battlefield has, or people raging because they don't get the thing they want. However, it's completely fucked in a timing-based game mode, which this explicitly is, right? You've got 90 seconds to...
Right.
So your ideal circumstance would be, all right, guys, we're taking the shield down on the walkers. We've got 90 seconds. Deploy the snow speeders now. But whenever you pick up one of those things, you've got 12 seconds to use it, or you lose it forever. And the Imperials, it doesn't matter, because they have their clock is just ticking second by second every moment. It's always a good idea to be a TIE fighter. Never a bad idea. Just go up and be a TIE fighter, man. Doesn't really matter. Fuck it.
It's true in life.
Imperial party bus does not stop rolling. Right? Whereas the Rebels, it can be this is a really shit time to be an X-Wing. There's really not much for me to do. I shot down a TIE fighter, but then I just flew around, and then it died. Or whatever. That's why I've got to think, I've just never seen the Rebels get even close to winning. And, you can be really high up on the scoreboard as the Rebels. You can kill loads of people, but it's I got one attack down to 90% of its health. But then then it just ended. So that's problem 1.
How long is the list?
Pretty much 2. But the other thing, and this is weird, it's just what baffles me about it, is God knows what the circumstances. They obviously need to get it out this year because there's a movie coming out.
Yeah.
So it's not the only mode, right? The other mode that's available in the beta is called Drop Zone, and it takes place on a small, very shitty-looking map. It's on a planet called Sullust, which wasn't in any of the films, which is like a kind of lava planet. But it's just brown rocks. It's just brown rocks and an Imperial shuttle. That's it. And both teams are on that map, infantry only, about 12 aside or something. And periodically a drop pod will crash into the map, and then whichever team captures it gets a point. And you have to capture it and then hold it for a certain amount of time. Which is fine on paper, although very rudimentary, given that the guns are incredibly simple and everything else is based on this cooldown power-up thing with a system of playing cards, because Star Wars. But the spawn system's fucked. Really weirdly fucked. Spawning you sort of randomly in the middle of the enemy team sometimes fucked, or spawning you right next to the objective that everyone else is rushing to, or miles away from it. And so every time you spawn, you have that moment of like, where the hell am I now? So it really resists. I never really got a sense that like a front line was forming between the two teams that could be flanked, for example, or could be, strategized around. Instead, it's just that it's like that Call of Duty thing of it just being a giant clusterfuck without a map that's sufficiently circular to funnel people around in a way that creates a sense of pace or timing. And this is even weirder on that Walker Assault map, where whenever the walkers reach like every sort of third of their journey they move along, the front line moves up. The places the rebels have to capture changes, and the Imperial spawn point moves up a bit in order to account for the battle moving, so they stay with the AT-ATs. That can occur in Battlefield, which does this much better. That occurs in Rush, but there's like an obvious period that's broadcast to the players where like the spawns are moving now. We have to get up to the next set of points. We have to kind of like move our defensive line and so on. That's not communicated at all in this. So you get these really weird moments where the rebels are still defending somewhere that they've been surviving for ages, but the Walker by itself has reached a bit further ahead. So the Imperials are now spawning behind them, and the confused Imperials are now going in the right direction for them, but the confused rebels are still defending the wrong direction behind them. And then it becomes this weird game of like who notices first, because whoever notices first wins. Because you either get, well, you'll win the match, but you either get the rebels notice that, hang on, the Imperials are spawning behind us. We can just hit their back line and just run through them into our own defences. Or the Imperials go like, oh, it's like the rebels right in our spawn, like facing the wrong way. Like free killing spree for everybody. And it's like, it's a beta. I should probably say that while kicking its face off. Like, it's a beta, but it's obviously also a marketing beta. It feels like a demo.
Well, they've not got long to fix these things.
It's out next month, this month. Like, I don't know. I really wanted to like it, but it feels like, to conclude, I guess, it feels very cynical. It feels like there's an understanding that dumb, spectacular shooters will always do well, and a dumb, spectacular Star Wars shooter during Star Wars year will do spectacularly well. And it feels dumber than Call of Duty. Like, it feels...
What an accolade.
Like, it feels like they've gone, all right, what we need to do is we need to go deeper, Like, we need to reach further past the bottom of the barrel in terms of strategic interest in a game or skill ceiling or anything else, and just deliver totally passable, albeit completely random entertainment. Like, there's something I've been thinking about more generally that I'll probably come back to a different time, but I think if you're not interested in balancing a competitive game or even making a very interesting competitive game, make it random. Make it RNG based, and then people will engage in it because it's gambling. And that's the feeling I get from it. It feels like just a big soup of admittedly brilliant looking Star Wars pictures, but with a game attached to it that's so thin, it's just tragic. I don't think it's very good.
It does seem to be doing well in terms of just like saturation on Reddit gaming. Like 50% of posts are just, here's a GIF from Battlefront that just happened to me.
Most of them are Luke Skywalker being trod on by something.
Yeah, it's just like, here's either Vader or Skywalker being stomped on or something crashed into them.
Yeah. And I think, there's some of that. I think that almost feels like it's half celebrating the game, but half like, this is a bit dumb. Like, this is the sort of premiere situation this lends itself to. And like, I don't know, it feels incredibly inelegant, and that's like mega disappointing. Like, it's like given that a season pass centric multiplayer shooter has not worked outside of Call of Duty in a long time. Titanfall was fucking brilliant, and they killed it with that business model. Evolve was okay, and they killed it with that business model. There's less than 600 people playing it now.
Yeah, but Star Wars might just barrel through on its name alone.
It probably will, but it will be almost a shame if it does, because they'll be getting £100 out of people
These people
for
need to learn.
a shit game that,
Doesn't feel like the game that anyone wants. Like, it feels like with the Battlefront name and with DICE behind it, there are gamers who want a Star Wars multiplayer shooter which is good and competitive and balanced and great. And then there are the Star Wars dads who want the Star Wars TM experience in Las Vegas, where it's authentic and it sounds great and the textures are great and it's cinematic. And probably what they want is a single player game. But instead there's this weird mishmash of both pushed together. And EA's marketing, like all of EA's marketing, is the same as the way that they market either FIFA or Medal of Honor, which is this is authentic. They keep using the word authentic. It's authentic. It's authentic. It's authentic. Like I know that, and a lot of the trailers they put out are like, hey, we went to ILM and they gave us actual lightsabers. Look at the lightsabers. We got the original sound effects from the films. Look, isn't it authentic? But they're making a multiplayer shooter. They're not making a kind of cinematic single player experience.
Yeah, actually, it was interesting. I got my haircut today, and my barber was saying, I'm going to go pre-order that Battlefront game. And I was like, and we were talking about it. And I realized about halfway through the conversation that he enjoyed playing the beta, but he treated that like, oh, well, this is the multiplayer. I can't wait to see what the single player is like.
Oh, right.
And I feel like I did a service by going, there isn't one, just before it's, and he was like, oh, fuck that then. Like, but they really haven't communicated very clearly that multiplayer demo you're playing isn't just like, oh, well, this is the kind of knockabout multiplayer version of what will be a Battlefield grade cinematic 6-hour single player shooter. I don't think they broadcast that at all, really, given how much they've gone on about everything else. So, yeah, I think the Star Wars dads are going to be sad Star Wars dads.
I think all my interest in it evaporated. I think you were telling me this, Tom, that that obviously cinematic sequence, essentially, where you get a rope and you tie it around the legs of one of the AT-ATs as they're walking in. Are they AT-ATs or are they at something else?
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever.
AT-ATs,
Those
yeah.
the big
AT-ATs.
walkie things in the snow place. But it's not a dynamic interaction. It's not like you have a tether rope at your at your disposal all
It
the
was
time.
this GIF someone posted. They posted it because they were really proud of this moment. They thought it was fantastic and they were really happy. So good for them. But but let me tear down their joy.
That's what it's about, Tom. The AT-AT of joy tumbling to the snow speed of the truth.
I'm kind of depressed anyway when games sort of exist to ape moments from films. Like, oh, you get to play the game and it'll just be a bit like that moment in the film. Not quite like that, but just like a little bit. You'll kind of capture some of what you experience from watching a passive film and doing nothing. It'll be almost as good as watching a film and doing nothing. And that always depresses me because I think games can be better than films and can let you do more than films. And this was particularly depressing because it was the bit from the film where he flies around the AT-AT with a cable attached and ties the legs together, and that causes the AT-AT to fall over because it's tied its legs together. So when it tries to move, it trips and collapses, which kind of makes a certain amount of sense. And is basically an emergent physics solution to a puzzle that games are great at and could easily do. But this is just, the guy flies around it 3 times, and there's like I can't remember, I think there's a progress bar, but once he's done it 3 times, a big thing pops up saying, success! And then the AT-AT just spontaneously collapses. It's not attempting to move at the time, like the cable is not taut around it, it's just, he's done the 3 laps, so the AT-AT collapses and explodes. It's like, yeah, he's done like the motion from the film, and the result has happened from the film, but the actual mechanic is completely missing, and that's what games can be good at and should be good at.
I don't think you even need to do that. I think your interaction is to activate the sequence and then hold it steady as you rotate.
Yeah, you've got to
automatically
remain level. That's
Yeah.
it. So you're not actually going round and round. You're just using one stick to go up and down to keep it within a certain zone.
And like you say, the fantasy of that from the film is that it's a dynamic, exciting solution of ingenuity and tool use. And it really is not that. It's pressing a button and doing a thing with a stick.
Yeah, I swear the Star Wars dads want to do that, and then they want an FMV sequence of Mark Hamill and John Rhys Davies hanging around on a spaceship going, well done, player.
Yeah,
Get in this lift.
Stopping that fruit salad.
It's like there's so much, there's just weird shit about it where it's like you've really gone to this fantastic length to simulate this famous cinematic battle that's been in a billion video games, and then little things about the way it's designed totally break it. Like, it's pretty easy to grab the Rebels' turrets if you're the Imperials and turn them around. And that really changes the dynamic of that fight, because from that scene, the sort of images you remember, like the trenches, and the distant walkers and the Rebels just sort of firing helplessly off across a massive snowy expanse to these huge things coming at them from the distance. And in the game, what happens is the Imperials run ahead using their jetpacks, because that shit. Capture a whole bunch of the turrets and then turn them around and point them at the Rebel spawn point for a while. Until a rebel manages to get into an X-wing token, crash the X-wing into the turret in order to save his team. And it's at that point you've gotten all of the bits, but you're like the really creative kid that wasn't paying attention to the film, that's made the story up on their own at that point, and it's stupid now. It's the closer they get to the look of the that moment in the films, the more inadequate their ability to systematize it and create the atmosphere of the films just with game systems becomes.
I've been playing the opposite of this game within the same genre, and that's Angels Fall First, which is like an amateur hour version of Battlefront, but was apparently kind of much more competently systematized in terms of achieving those kind of mass battle fantasies with lots of different kind of vehicle types. There's lots of different maps set in different arenas of combat, so there are levels where it's almost entirely space set and set within either spaceships on foot as first-person shooter or within space itself. And then there are kind of mass ground assaults where you can play, planes and tanks and other things. And it really allows you to do a lot with that. Like in the space assault level.
This is like sci-fi, generic sci-fi, or?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's remarkable about it in terms of its comparison with Battlefront is that it's obviously going to look shit by comparison. It's in an earlier version of the Unreal Engine. It kind of feels quite generic. I mean, they've done quite well with the assets, really, considering it's a tiny team, an ex-modding team, but it's never going to compare with the kind of AAA efforts. It's not going to compare with PlanetSide even in terms of the kind of fidelity or the world it's selling. But it does a lot more, I think, than Battlefront seems to. In this massive assault on a space station, you start, if you're one of the attackers, you start on this capital ship, and then you run to the fighter bays, and you can go out in various different ships, and they drop out of warp around this massive space station. You kind of dogfight around it, and you destroy the gun turrets and stuff that are protecting it. Then your capital ship can drop in, and then the capital ship can drop ships, which then can breach the hulls of other ships that are defending it, and then you can go inside those ships as boarding parties, and you destroy the core. Then you have to try and escape as the thing's fucking exploding. Then you steal an enemy fighter pilot that's in the cargo bay of the ship that's exploding and fly out.
The pilot.
Sorry? Sorry?
You still fight. Oh, you still fight.
Oh, you can. Well, this is the thing. You can play every single one of those roles, including piloting the capital ship, and all the guns on it. And obviously, the AI will take over to a certain extent. If there aren't manned roles, it's 64 man battles, so it feels very busy all the time. It's extremely buggy and broken in a bunch of ways at the moment. It is in early access, and one of the main problems with it is that it's obviously not quite ready for netcode launch. I think they've had a bunch of problems with the netcode, and I didn't find any problems playing online. Really, we did crash once actually, but the problem wasn't stability. The problem was that the servers weren't populated enough to find a single server with a high enough human headcount. So I've only really been playing it with bots. And that does kind of recreate the spectacle in an amazing way, but there's none of the strategy, because you can also play as a commander who gets voted in, and you have a strategic map, which is a three-dimensional kind of representation of the entire battle arena, and you can see everybody moving through that individually, and you can set waypoints for every single squad, and quite a sophisticated level of command that you have over the units. And there are obviously important strategic decisions to be made, because there's a division between primary objectives, which are the things in the assault mode where there's like 3 stages and it advances linearly. So you complete phase 1, you go into phase 2, and a whole new set of objectives open up to you. So you can concentrate on those. But there are also secondary objectives which allow you to kind of bring in more reinforcements. And say you capture in one of the city assault maps, which is a fucking huge city. It's really too big to navigate around with any kind of sense of where you're going. But you can kind of capture a drop zone, and then somebody can pilot in a drop ship, and then that will be a kind of forward spawn point for you. And so, that's a significant tactical decision, where you deploy your forces and whether you're going just kind of trying to hammer the primary objectives, you're trying to kind of do a slow movement up, and all the time the mission timer is ticking down. So you've got to make these kinds of decisions. You just can't do that with bots. Like I don't understand the command interface myself, and I don't know if it's bugged out or something, but I find it impossible to use. And the AI commander is just as stupid as I am, it turns out. But all those things aside, like it's just so much more exciting than the stuff that's been coming out of EA recently with either Battlefield or Battlefront.
I played a UT mod that sounds a lot like this.
It could well be it.
Yeah.
So
So
it was a mod for an Unreal game called
Right.
Angels Fall First.
I can't remember what the name was, but it could have been that. And it was in a very early state at that time, but it could already. I remember being amazed at just what you could do in it, because you could pilot a capital ship and then just sort of get up and walk through the corridors of the capital ship down to the docking bay, and then walk into the docking bay and climb into one of the fighters, and then just launch that fighter and fly out of the capital ship, and then just be in space, and then
Yep. Yeah, well, that's possible.
amazing.
It's all quite like, again, like it's going to struggle to compete with any of the bigger budget titles, because everything in it feels slightly lower grade. Like firing weapons isn't particularly satisfying in any way. They seem to have made hundreds of different weapons, but all of them are basically semi-automatic machine guns with slightly different clip sizes. It's just like, I don't know whether this is better or worse. There's like three other weapons which are more interesting. One of which is like some kind of flechette launcher, which then the flechettes then detonate after a few seconds. There's a kind of big laser gun, which feels like the laser gun out of Halo, and I think there's a shotgun and some pistols. But otherwise, it's all just machine guns of various kind of flabbiness. But even there's just in the midst of battle, regardless of how kind of crummy it feels to shoot these weapons, it feels great to be there, because there's just so much chaos happening around you. There's like, with 32-man team behind you swarming over this landscape, and just things are fucking kicking off all over the place. Like just gantries suddenly are consumed in flame. And you're like, I have no fucking clue how that happens. I don't even know if there's a flamethrower in the game. I certainly haven't found it. And it's just exciting.
awesome.
Sounds rad. Is there a player base for it? Are people actually?
Well, this is the thing. Not really. Maybe there will be, though. I mean, it might be. I did see one server had a full complement of 64 people in it, but it was password protected for some reason. So obviously there's a community there, and all 64 of those people managed to find the password. I don't know where they're from though. Maybe they're on Reddit. But I hope it does survive long enough to become to fix a lot of these problems, because I don't think it's impossible. That I think some of the rough edges in regards to the kind of assets and maybe the weapon feel and maybe the finer details of balance, they probably be beyond fixing. That's a kind of pessimistic thing, but I think in a lot of the other ways in which the game is currently broken, it can easily work.
Yeah.
It's
They've
not
been
conceptually
working-
broken.
Yeah, no, indeed, yeah.
If they've been working on it since I played it in 2005, then it may be beyond fixing.
I think they have actually. They did say, I think it might have been 2007 or something that they
Right.
said, but they're just a mod team, so they've been working on it in their spare time
Right.
for that amount of time.
Jesus.
Feels like the world's kind of ready for something smaller than PlanetSide but bigger than Battlefield.
Yeah, it fits exactly in that spot.
Like where Tribes 2 was, where what was it? Terra Nova, games like that kind of went with the kind of big joint arms multiplayer thing.
Yeah, feels good. I mean, like again, like none of the space flight in it isn't probably as nuanced as it is in Elite, or I don't know. I've not played Star Citizen, but I don't think there's full Newtonian physics in it. For example, it feels very kind of arcadey, but at the same time, that fits the kind of game. Like it's so much more immediate, and it means that every 32 of those people on a team can just pile out the airlock and be in vessels swooping around doing useful stuff, rather than just spinning and try and work out how to dock.
Or waiting to find the token that lets you be a TIE fighter.
Yes. Yeah. I've also been playing Metal Gear Solid with Richard Stanton, and you can see the fruits of our labour on our YouTube channel right now. There should be 2 episodes up by the time this podcast goes live.
Great plug.
Thanks.
Shall we do questions from questions?
Yes.
Yes. Good. Kane writes, what are certain games that you remember fondly, but the rest of gaming seems to have forgotten about? Bonus points for ones recent enough that all these darn kids could have actually played them. For me, it's Ken's Labyrinth, a game about rescuing a dachshund from aliens by throwing jelly at them. Silencer, a multiplayer side-scrolling shooter about hacking computers on Mars with persistent RPG character progression. And 10-6, an MMO in which you command an army of robots from atop a hoverboard, which predicted Eve's corporations by almost a decade. Regards, guards, arrest them. Kane.
Nice. I don't know any of those. The Silencer sounds familiar from the name, but that might be just my brain getting crosswired because my first thought of this was Crusader No Remorse, which is not forgotten by the rest of the gaming community, but it doesn't really get talked about much, or is not sort of widely regarded. I was playing that kind of around the time I was playing Ultima Underworld and Monkey Island 2. Those two games do get talked about a lot. And Crusader No Remorse just had so much, like, that was the destructible environments are like just now catching up to what that game did. It was just every fucking thing that took a bullet in some way exploded or ruptured or set on fire. Everything, it just had like a super reactive environment. If you shot a barrel, it could roll away, and then when it hit something, then it would explode. So you could kind of knock barrels down corridors and then use them like projectiles. You could turn valves to set jets of flame or liquid nitrogen to freeze enemies in different parts of the map, and just had loads of so really cool stuff going on like that. And like they had loads and loads of gadgets too, and loads of different weapons. And one of them was a remote controllable spider mine that you would steer around the levels, and then when it blew up, it would, smash all the glass, rupture everything, destroy all the computers, and also burst a gas pipe, which then jetted liquid nitrogen into somebody, and then a barrel would roll down a hill, and so on and so on. Weirdly, like, this wasn't a classic or anything, and I don't even know if it was any good, but there was a game called Chaser, and I'm pretty sure no one ever talks about that, which was like a first-person shooter that I think had the exact plot of Total Recall. Like, you'd had your memory wiped on Mars, and then you had to, I don't know, get off of Mars or something.
Yeah, to get your ass to Mars.
Its big technological innovation was that you could, like, any wooden planks in the game, you could shoot them and they would break at the exact point you shot them, and then like the loose part would fall off and the rest of it would be. And this is a long time ago. And the gun sound was really good. That's all I remember about it. The gun sound was really good, and planks would fall off wherever you shot them.
I can't think of anything that's like truly forgotten, but it does feel like there are series that have died, probably not to be resurrected. And the more I was trying to think about them, the more I realised they're all THQ games. So Red Faction, a game where you are on Mars and you can shoot stuff, and an accurate
Mars
proportion
games
of that
don't
thing
last.
falls off.
Yeah.
But not just Armageddon, which was their big jackhammer wielding open world thing. People liked, I think, but the old Red Faction shooters with the endless tunneling through level geometry. That seems like an idea and a series that is unlikely to recur, like particularly in that format where it's like, you've got a big piston, go on, drill a big loop through the wall for some reason.
If only they'd rendered the world as blocks.
Yeah. And, along a similar track, No One Lives Forever. I mean, it's talked about because it's sort of commonly missed, but it's still...
Nobody's brought it back.
Nobody's brought it back. It's not, you can't even buy it. Deus Ex is getting, proper treatment for its 15th anniversary, and No One Lives Forever 2, which is better than Deus Ex, is been left in ignominy.
That is ripe for a remake, really. I mean, I couldn't imagine.
Other Rights in Limbo or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Vivendi back in the day, or Sierra or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows who owns that now?
Yeah.
I almost weirdly like jazz punk is the one thing that gives me a bit of a No One Lives Forever vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something of that to it. But No One Lives Forever was so much about the kind of the systems-driven, open-ended mission stealth stuff, and the sense of humor and amazing guard conversations. Like, they don't make them like that anymore.
Prostate Puncher, right?
Isn't
Cousin
it
of
prison?
Toilet Puncher.
Yeah, the inverse of Toilet Puncher, when the toilet punches back.
Of the Westbury Punchers.
Via Twitter, he writes, or she writes, who knows, is taunting in competitive games a good feature? Does being taunted bother you?
They say punching their prostate.
Yeah, it does bother me, and it's great.
It's great as well. It doesn't bother me, but I think it's great because it takes the shitty behaviour of multiplayer where people yell insults at each other and ideally makes it a part of the game world in a way that's fun.
It bothers me just the right amount, I would say. Like, I mean, the high watermark for this is Dark Souls. I know we talk about Dark Souls all the time, but it has a really good emote system, and there's lots of expressions that you can do to a player who you've just horribly fucked in some way. Bowing down to them sardonically, or saluting them.
Team Fortress 2 is the game that I always think of. And the taunts never bothered me so much as the nemesis system, where I think if someone kills you 3 times in a row, they become your nemesis, and that marked on the scoreboard. I really fucking hate that. But then you're supposed to. That's the point of it. They're my nemesis now. I'm supposed to hate that.
I like my favourite taunt in TF2, or the one that most represents the way I want taunts to be, is just the sniper waving. Because it's just like, oh, it's over here. Hello. And I mean, the spy doesn't really have. The spy flicking a cigarette is really good, but you never really see that much. Like, no one really does it. And like waving your knife around is, I don't like that one because it's just doesn't really match up. Like, what I want is the taunt version of a line that he just says randomly sometimes, which is, I never really was on your side. Just stuff like that.
2 really good examples of this today, actually. One, not to digress into console and too briefly, is that only about 2 hours ago I spent real world money in order to be able to slow clap people in Destiny. Because today they opened the microtransaction store for that game, and all they're selling is emotes, which are kind of like full body animations with, sound effects and stuff. You can only equip one at a time, which is a shame, but like the premium layer, one of them is the Carlton dance from Fresh Prince, and the other is a really good slow clap. Like, it even has the kind of like disbelieving head shake, like, which is half like, oh, that was amazing, and you're a twat. It's really well done with the sound effect. There's also there's a lot of sarcastic pointing. It's good. There's a blowing a kiss, which would be a really good sniper one, like if you just pick someone off across the map. But also, at the moment, there's a big Dota qualifier going on across the world. And it's sort of turned out that, like, South America's, it's called BM, Bad Manners, but their taunt game is, like, ahead of the rest of the world. But, like, not just not in terms of, like, toxicity or flaming, but just in terms of creativity. So they're the only pro players I've ever seen actually use the taunts in Dota, because there are, they're called taunts, but they're really just animations that you can bind to a key that you can play at any point as your character. And so one of them is just, like, a wizard guy gets on his staff and rides around like a broomstick as you're moving along. And one of them in a character is a massive sort of demon, Sauron-looking dude. You can press a taunt, and he does this little dance like this, because people noticed in Dota 1 the character moved with particular swagger. And and you press a button now, and he properly kind of like does this kind of like, I don't know if you've strut down the street kind of thing, and even little tambourines in the background, like ding, 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 as he kind of moves along. And I've never seen it in pro play, because holy shit, like there's literally millions of dollars on the line. But there was a moment where a guy was on almost no health, and the casters have written him off, and then he just kills 2 people in the enemy base and just walks out. And as he walks out down the hill, it's like ding, 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 off around the corner. With the world watching. But also
mobile taunts are a good thing, actually. Like being able to do it while you do something.
Yeah, that was a new thing for those. Previously, they were like static, and now it works while your character's in motion, which is really good. But they're doing things like during the mid lane duel, which is the kind of most close fought 1v1, where failing to get a single last hit on a single creep is like the difference between success and disaster. While successfully last hitting things, they're also dragging really important items out of their inventory, momentarily putting them on the ground and picking them back up again, while also doing everything else in the game, which is a kind of like, fuck you, I don't even need to be picking this up, and I'll put it down again. I don't even know why I've put it down. I've just picked it up again. Who knows? Who knows what I'll do next? Oh, I'll put it down again. But now it's in my inventory again. Haha, fuck you. It's great. Basically, it's great.
One thing I do like about TF2 stuff in particular is that it immobilizes you, so it's really risky, and it costs you something. And that means that as a taunt, it works much better, because it's like, this person sacrificed some of their actual ability to do this to me. And that, I don't know how it works exactly in StarCraft, but it comes up in Pro StarCraft sometimes. And again, it's considered bad manners, but because it is bad manners. Sometimes, I think every unit in StarCraft can be made to dance. Maybe not the mechs, but the like all the organic ones. Like, I don't know how you do it. Do you type it in
maybe a
chat
chat command? Yeah.
It's probably like
it's a chat command in HOTS,
like
isn't
in
it?
WoW. And so, just very, very rarely, like 1 in 100 pro games of StarCraft, someone who's well ahead you'll see like their swarm of zerglings rushing in and destroying stuff, and then they'll all just stop and just twirl on the spot. And the goblins say, "He's making the zerglings dance! The zerglings are dancing! It's over!"
That's the best. Matt writes, or Menthol Penguin writes, is there a particular historical time period you would like to see games explore more?
Periclean Athens.
Excellent. Any advances on that?
In all seriousness, Periclean Athens would be pretty great. I would like to see.
What does Periclean mean?
It's about, well, it's in the time of Pericles, who's one of Athens' greatest leaders, who was also nicknamed Penis Head.
Penis Heady in Athens.
Because he was born with, he was pulled out of his mother's womb with forceps, which elongated his forehead, making him have the appearance of a penis. And he, actually, a lot of the statues of him have these particularly long helmet that he's wearing to disguise his penis head.
He'd be amazing at taunts.
Yeah. Anyway, he's pretty cool. But I think it's not so much the specific time periods. It's just I'd like to see more interesting aspects of those time periods explored. So, for example, obviously medievalism, not unfamiliar in gaming, but there's a lot more about the medieval world that I'd like to see done. You know, I mean, there aren't that many. I'd like to see a prison architect style management game about running a castle, for example. I think that'd be super interesting.
There is, and it's not really that, but Stronghold is a game just about making a castle and defending it. But I think it's probably more high level than Prison Architect.
Yeah, I'm more
feel
interested in the kind of the actual, the social aspect of running a castle. Well, that's not exactly right. Well, the what's the word? The kind of logistics of running a castle, rather than it being purely for military function. Like these things,
You want Downton Abbey, the game.
Yeah.
I'd like. I think I tried to think of I thought of a bunch of time periods for this, and then for every one of them, I could think of a strategy game that does it. Because there are lots of like war games, basically, you know, set in loads of different periods, and they're covered well. And then there's the stuff like Rise of Nations and Civ, where they just cover every fucking time period all at once. But I want more different types of games in those settings. Like as I was reading it, as you were talking about it just now, I suddenly thought like. I'd love to play a BioWare RPG set in the time of Cicero.
Oh yeah,
where you have to give inspiring speeches and stuff.
Oh, man. Well,
in the forum.
Yeah. Rome, the game, you know, Rome, the TV series, was obviously silly in some ways, but that's a fascinating kind of exciting time of politicking and backstabbing and drama. I can see you could really do a kind of rich RPG in that setting.
It needs games to move away from combat a bit, because that's when they get the urge to reach for fantasy, because it makes most forms of combat much easier to do if somebody can be a healer and somebody else can be a wizard. But yeah.
Speaking of historical time periods, Sabby787 writes, Far Cry Primal. How will they contrive a reason for a support character to yell in my ear?
You'll have a parrot.
Just relaying orders that were actually spoken to him like
Earlier.
previous day.
Climb the watchtower! That's a pirate thing, but no matter.
Peyote.
Yeah.
Just hallucinate your orders. I mean, they showed bits with you with your tribe, so maybe they'll actually have AI squad mates sometimes. I kind of hope not. But.
Gyrocopters made of bone with ladies inside them yelling at you.
That was actually another time period that I thought about, and I only thought about it because it actually has been done. But there was a Adeline software game called Time Commando. Actually, this also suits the previous question about games that no one talks about anymore. So the guys who made Little Big Adventure, which does get some deserved credit. They also made a game called Time Commando where it was like a third-person action game where you just had to go through time beating everyone up. But it was chronological, so you started in caveman days, and you just had to pick up a stick and like beat up some saber-toothed
The world's
tigers.
angriest man.
And I think the idea is like you just got sent back, and then obviously like each time period you spawn and everyone attacks you because you're wearing a yellow jumpsuit, which is universally hated throughout the ages. And so yeah, just like clubbing people to death with sticks and throwing rocks at them, and then I think the next one was like feudal Japan, and so obviously you get a samurai sword and have fights like that, and then the next thing I can't remember what the next one. There might have been a World War II bit, but eventually you get like laser pistols and stuff. But I think you took all your weapons with you from the previous one, so you arrive in the sci-fi one with a samurai sword.
That sounds great. And that's all the time for questions we have.
You can send us questions at questions@crateandcrowbar.com. You can tweet at us. We're at Crate and Crowbar on Twitter. You can post them on our forum, which is crateandcrowbar.com/forum. We've also got some kind of chat room thing. Where do you find that?
Yeah, with difficulty. It's probably best if you go to our website and then go to the forum, and there's probably a post about it. I might put a link actually at the top of our website.
Yeah,
If you send me the link, I'll put it in the show notes.
Sure.
So that's for Discord as well, which is you can use online or you can download an app, which is pretty good.
It's fucking great. It's one of the best things that's been recently invented for gaming, I would say.
It really is, yeah. It replaced Skype in my life, which is nice. 'Cause
I
Skype-
tried to use it for voice chat whilst playing Rainbow Six Siege beta, and it crashed multiple times. And like the website crashed, and then the app crashed as well.
Oh,
But
okay.
it might have been. I also couldn't get Siege to run, and almost everything on my PC crashed at that point. So who knows what really caused it? You can also give money to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/crateandcrowbar, which is a lovely thing that people already do, and is paid for these lovely mics that you're hearing right now.
And also a video series that we're doing,
Yes.
and will do in the future.
What else? You can follow us individually. I'm at Pentadact, PENTADACT. Chris?
I'm at C Thurston, that's CTHURSTEN.
I am at Gonnas, Gonnas.
I'm at Marsh Davis. That's DAVIES.
Thanks for
Turning your microphone back on. Have you done that, Tom?
Tom has not put his microphone back on.
He has.
Bob.
He has. Well done, everybody.
But has Graham.
Yes.